Episode 98, Confidence Through Connection with Kristine Cramer.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and certified through the Life Coach School. Together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
Confidence is when you know you can do something because you've done it before. Self-confidence is knowing you can do something even when you have never done it before or you run up against roadblocks. Coach Kristine Cramer helps her clients build more self-confidence with themselves through their connections with themselves, others, and God. She firmly believes that we can't have true self-confidence unless we fully accept all of ourselves and know that being human is all part of the plan. Come listen to today's episode as Kristine cheers you on and gives you hope for accomplishing deeper connection with those around you and with yourself as you become more self-confident.
Hey, everybody. We're glad to be here today. I'm glad to be here today. I'm glad to be joined by Coach Kristine Cramer. And she's not been on the podcast before. I have had lots of conversations with Kristine. We do Instagram lives, some come follow me discussions that we've been doing this year. And so I've gotten to have lots of conversations there, but the podcast setting is new. And I am excited to have her here today. Hi, Kristine.
Hi, Heather. It's so good to be here with you.
It's so fun to be here with you. And like usual, I wanted to start by having you introduce yourself and telling us a little bit about your journey.
I would love that. First of all, I have to say I'm really grateful for your work with LDS Coaches Directory, LDS Life Coaches Directory. I'm grateful for Meg Tilton and Shannon and Clendenning and what they do. And I'm sure there's many others in creating this wonderful group of coaches in the directory. It's been a joy to be a part of it. It's just been part of it for this year, just joined in the beginning of the year. I live
in Olympia. By the way, I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
And Meg and Shannon are amazing. They help me out on the back end of many things and it's so fun. Thank you. Okay, I interrupted you, which I'm good at. Sorry.
No. I just wanted to let you know that I live in Olympia, Washington, and with my husband of 49 years.
Oh, wow.
And we have 5 children and 20 amazing grandchildren. I like to spend time with my family. We like to travel. We like to hike. I love to go on walks as well. But we've done some backpacking through the years with our children and with our grandchildren. So that's been a real treat. I love to read good books. I'm in a book group and have been for many, many years here, and that's fun. I love to watch movies. I love movies. I play a little bit of tennis, and I've just found a new love with pickleball. It's really fun.
That is one thing that I keep thinking I'm going to get into a little bit more, but I haven't. So,
it's so fun. I think you'll love it. But I also love to listen to podcasts, and which led me to coaching and the Life Coach School. So I graduated from BYU with one of my daughters and son-in-law, Becca and Bob. And near the end of my studies, I took some psychology classes in counseling, which were specific to counseling. And I thought I wanted to go to graduate school and be a therapist, but I also wanted to take a little break, and I just never did get back to take the GRE and apply. So my husband and I did serve a senior mission in Switzerland. And after we got home.
Okay, hold on one second. I just have to pause you right there.
Yes.
That is my most favorite place that I've ever been. So I have a little bit of jealousy right now that you got to spend that much time there. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. We were there for 18 months, and it was wonderful. As senior missionaries, you typically have one assignment and you're typically in one ward, and you just get to know and love the people so much. So it was a great experience, and we're still really close with many. We feel like we left part of our heart there in Switzerland. And we worked with the young single adults there. I had taught seminary for lots of years and institute. And my husband had served as a bishop. And anyway, it was marvelous. It was a real treat.
Yeah.
But we had to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine, Julie, suggested life coaching as an alternative to counseling. And so I started looking into life coach schools, and I did some research and checked out a few. And then about 5 years ago, one of my other daughters, Megan, was studying to be a health coach. And she said, "Hey, Mom, maybe you want to look at this program. It's health coaching, but it's also some life coaching as well, aspects to it." And so I did, but again, it just didn't really resonate for me. Well, then soon after that, my daughter, Becca, again, told me about an episode of her friend, Tony Overbay, and his podcast called The Virtual Couch. I don't know, maybe you've heard.
I have heard that.
He's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. And at that time, he was interviewing a life coach, and the life coach name was Jody Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to Jody Moore, just that podcast was like, okay, I think I want to listen to more of her and more about life coaching. So it's just like one thing led to another. And I found myself at the life coach school about 6 months later. It was the first of the online programs. And so it took us a full year. We did, the certification, and then I chose the applied coaching track, which gave me a lot more experience with coaching with some wonderful master coach mentors. And then I did do, 2 years ago, I did Jody Moore's advanced certification training. And I also completed a course in ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy or acceptance commitment training. And that I found out about again through Tony, but I loved that. That was with Russ Harrison. Currently, I'm enrolled in another certification program called Mind Firm Method with a coach firm developed and created by Jennifer Markoff and Sarah Fouts. And I highly recommend it for a life coaching certification program. To me, it's been a perfect culmination of all the coach training I've done in the last 4 years. I love coaching. I love everything about it. And above all, I love my clients and helping them to up-level their lives. So as stated, and I think in the clip or in your notes, you'll have that I help clients find joy and fulfillment in relationships and achieve their goals as they become more self-confident. I coach on self-confidence because I really feel it's at the root of everything. So anyway, that tells you a little bit. We can talk a little bit more about that, but that gives you a little idea of who I am. And
no, I appreciate that so much. And I think people appreciate hearing the journey that people have in their lives. It looks so different for all of us. And it's interesting, like what I'm doing today is nothing. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have never thought that this is where I would be, or this is what I'm doing. And probably the same for you. It's just really interesting what happens when we listen and let ourselves be guided. And then we're brave enough to act and do. And I think, to your point, the root of that is there's some self-confidence that has to be there in order to follow promptings and in order to do the things that we feel like are kind of in our path to do.
Yeah. Well, and so we're open to that, but we're not necessarily, we haven't done it before, right?
Yeah.
It's new territory.
It's terrifying.
It's
doing something different. Yeah.
Yeah, it is terrifying. But to be open to that and be vulnerable and be okay with feeling different feelings and still following through with our goals or what we have been prompted to do or feel inclined to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. I think, as human beings, this concept of, self confidence is super important on many levels, but I think there's this piece of connection that we crave and want as human beings. We come to Earth needing that. And I think that is part of Heavenly Father's plan, right? It's like giving us the need for that connection is how he is loving and caring for all of his children. And I just want to know what your thoughts are there on connection.
I feel like that's something that comes very natural for me. That's really a gift that I've been given, to connect with others, to connect things, or to connect people, and to connect myself with things and people. And I remember, as my children were growing up and they would be going somewhere or doing something, and they'd come home and they would tell me a little bit about what they had done or who they were with. And I would always ask, now, do I know them? And so that was kind of the running joke. Like, do I know them? Like, is there a connection here? But anyway, I think belonging, that's one of our basic needs, right? As human beings, is belonging. But we often think of that as belonging to someone else or to something else outside of us, belonging to a group. I explained it, in the beginning, that I belong to a book club or book group, and we've been together as a group for decades now, and we have such great memories. And so that belonging is so important. Every time that we meet once a month, depending on who's there, it's a really comfortable feeling. But I think that I really feel strongly about a connection with ourself. And I'm not the only one. I mean, other people, and there's research out there to back that up, is feeling connected to ourselves and having that as a key relationship, and certainly a launching pad, so to speak, for other relationships, and that there's interdependence. Like, we're an individual. In our connections, we are interdependent with each other. We connect and touch each other's lives, hopefully for good, for the most part. But I think that is a basic need that we have to belong. But I always love my clients to focus for a while on the connection with themselves, and making sure that they know themselves, that they're okay with having strengths and weaknesses, and that it's all okay and good, and that it's part of being a human. It's just becoming more familiar with being comfortable with yourself and belonging to yourself too.
One of my favorite things that I have learned over the past few years is that the love we feel, the love we're able to experience, we can't experience it if we don't already have love within us. And that love within us comes from learning to love ourselves, all of us, the things we like, the things we don't like, what you just said. And if we don't have that love already created within us, we are not able to love other people to the extent that we want to. We're not able to radiate and express and share that love.
Yeah. It's much more challenging, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. For example, we think perhaps someone is, acting or speaking rudely to us. We make that judgment, right? And so then we feel a little annoyed or frustrated, so that we find ourselves then acting that out, as far as maybe being a little speaking harshly or sharply or short, or we withdraw from them. So as a result, we kind of end up being rude back. We wouldn't have thought we wanted to do that. That wasn't necessarily our intent, but it was just by default that we just kind of caught up in that judgment. And so when we release that judgment of ourselves, because I think that's kind of the root of it, is that we're kind of judgmental of ourselves.
Or a lot judgmental of ourselves.
Judgmental of ourselves, right? And so then that comes out in those ways. But if we are like, yeah, I totally get it. Sometimes I say things that I didn't necessarily mean to say. I'm sure that's something or something's going on for them. Something's, they're experiencing something that they're having a hard time with, just pausing a little bit before we, react to it, and just allowing that to be, and be more okay with that than judgmental. I mean, a lot of times when we're trying to be better, we go through those stages where we see it afterwards and we wish we would have done something different. But if we can just allow that to be a learning experience, use that as useful information, then we can, and we practice that enough, like after the fact, then we get a lot better at noticing it in the moment and kind of catching ourselves. And then we practice that enough, and then we can actually almost predict that might happen or think ahead at some situations that might come up and some things that might come up for us and how we would want to act or how we would want to, what we would want to think about it. So
giving yourself some space to think before you act or to be intentional about how you are acting is so good for us. And like, it's so good for our ability to love and be confident in ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's like a very integral piece.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your connection, where you see the connection between, confidence and the connection with others.
Well, first of all, I think about confidence is there's kind of a difference. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between confidence and self-confidence. So confidence is actually knowing and trusting yourself that you can do something because you've done it before. So like, I know I can get into a car and drive. I can drive to the store. I've done it thousands of times, really. Even if there's a roadblock along the way, there's some road construction, I know that I can get around it somehow.
Right.
So I can get there. I can get to my destination. Or I can pour a glass of water almost with my eyes closed if I'm holding the glass. You've done something so many times. It's like, I've got this. And sort of underlying that is the self-confidence, but self-confidence really comes in handy and we can access it when we're doing something new or when we want to set a goal and we haven't been successful at it. Then we just know, okay, I know that this might not happen. I might need to tweak this a little bit. Eventually, I'm going to try this. I know I might not do it well enough that I can reach this goal, but I'm going to keep trying. And any emotion that comes up, I can just process that emotion, that I know I'm going to feel some positive and some negative emotions throughout my day and throughout this time that I'm working on this goal. And I will just process those emotions as they come. I don't need to necessarily worry about what could go wrong. I just know that I can process that emotion when something comes up.
So it's like confidence in your ability to navigate the process, not so much in your ability to complete something, but it's knowing I have confidence in the day-to-day or whatever it is, but just,
and that I'll keep going.
Yeah.
And that I won't necessarily give up because it hasn't worked so far. And it certainly, I know that it's going to be challenging, but I love to refer to Dan Sullivan's 4 C's, where we have the commitment, but then we have to muster up the courage, right? And that courage is not glamorous like it looks like in the movies. I told you before, I love movies and I love Wonder Woman. She's amazing. And she does make everything. I'm just to change into that outfit, right? And just make everything work with all of her little lasso and everything in her power. But for courage for us, it's pretty horrible sometimes. It's just, it just takes a lot of effort. It takes some grit, courage. But then with courage comes capability. And then after capability, we work at it long enough, we do receive the confidence that we need. But I think that courage, that self-confidence is in that courage part. We can figure things out. I love everything is figure outable. We can figure it out.
Like that confidence you see as being integral to being able to connect to other people. And then also I know we need connection with God. And let's talk about that a little bit. How does that fit in, right? Like the whole piece.
Yes. We believe that we have divine nature. Like we are the literal offspring of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. And so we have so much going for us to begin with, right? As daughters and sons of God, that we can remember who we are, that we are valued by them, and we have worth. And that worth doesn't change. That worth is different than self-confidence. That worth, it never changes. It's always constant. And the love that we can feel for them. I really loved President Nelson's reference to that in his talk with this last conference about how much Heavenly Father loves us and Jesus loves us. It's like we love them, but remembering that can help us have the courage and resilience, to stay on the covenant path, but also stay on our path of achieving the goals that we want to, and having a better relationship with ourselves, perhaps with our spouse or with our partner or with our children or with our friends at work. I mean, there's so many connections that we have and interactions. I know COVID sort of slowed us down with that face-to-face, but I think we're back in that mode. I mean, Zoom is wonderful and it's been so useful for us as a resource for connections, but we're back in each other's space. And so, like you said before, though, but creating that space in our head and in our minds helps us to get a better handle on processing the emotions. And also, one thing that's interesting is, as humans and our species, we're the only mammals, I guess, that can think about our thinking. So that metacognition, I love that, holding that space to think about our thinking, think about our feelings, and that's how we can process, is creating that space and being the watcher or an observer of what we're thinking and feeling.
As we have confidence in ourselves, we don't get it tangled up with worthiness and our worth from God. And when we get that tangled up, it's really hard for us to have that relationship with God because we're not thinking of it correctly. We're thinking that he is, he's judging us, or that we aren't getting what we may or may not deserve. Like we get things tangled up if we don't really understand our true relationship with him. And it's hard to understand that relationship with him if we don't have that confidence in ourselves.
Absolutely. And when our clients come to us, then it really kind of boils down to one of two things. It's like something's gone wrong. Like something shouldn't have happened. That happened. Someone shouldn't have done what they did, or I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. So something's wrong outside of me. Something's gone wrong, or I'm not enough. And that again is that key relationship to self.
So important and so needed, right? Like that, we need a relationship with ourselves in order to be brave and confident and in connecting with other people. And like I said, which is such an integral piece of our humanity. But
I think with that piece, with that connection with God and helping us through grace, I love to talk about grace, right? That in divine enabling power, and through continued repentance, as far as turning back to God, like turning to him for the help, we are able to just be okay with who we are right now, like allowing us to be human, to have, like I said, to have strength and weaknesses, and just really allowing that takes that intensity of whatever emotion we're feeling way down. Just allowing that really is a little bit more calming. So where we can, again, take that power back and figure things out for ourselves. We're like, yeah, that makes sense. I have an understanding of why I said that, or why I responded that way,
right,
or why they did. I'm curious. That curiosity, so much better than judgment.
Yeah. It's that piece of compassion, right? It allows you to be compassionate with yourself, which we need in being able to be self-confident. And also, you talked about that judgment, and sometimes that gets tangled up in, our judgments of ourselves because of what we perceive other people being. We compare, there's that comparison piece.
Mm-hmm.
When we compare ourselves to others, it's really hard at times to just be accepting
Mm-hmm.
of who we are and be okay with that. And understanding that we're different for a reason.
Absolutely. It's also taking ownership and responsibility for who we are, being compassionate, and being okay, with who we are. I believe that really helps us to connect with others, and not necessarily to compare, but to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's often said that comparison is the thief of joy. I think comparison is also the thief of progress and moving forward, because we have a tendency to kind of stay stuck there. That's another thing that I've loved about coaching and the coaching community at large, and in the different groups that I've been privileged to be a part of, is that it is so supportive, and no one is afraid of sharing for the good of someone else. And you're happy when someone else does well and is successful. And yeah, it's a beautiful community of caring and compassion. And yes, of course, we want to improve and we want to make progress. And depending on what path you take with coaching and how you decide to use coaching, but to be excited and to be happy for other people is so good for the soul. It's so good, because it's like, yeah, I'm good. I feel like I'm in a good place and I'm doing what I love to do, but I'm learning from everyone else, and I'm hopefully sharing some good as well.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's an interdependent and interconnective type of relationship. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about self-confidence and the importance of having it, right? In relationship with ourselves, in relationship with others, in relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love for people to have some takeaways. Like, let's talk about the details of self-confidence. What are some tools, some things that you have seen that you like to share with your clients that maybe you could share with our listeners today?
Okay. I love educating my clients about their brain. Like, I am certainly not a neuroscience scientist, but I have learned some things through psychology and classes that we have different parts of our brain that do things really well. And one of the things that our lower brain, or primitive brain, some people call it, is that it really wants to keep us safe. It's really good at that. It's always looking out for danger. It wants us to seek pleasure or have fun. And it also wants us to conserve energy, wants us to not make too much of your time or energy into doing this. And it loves to just like rinse and repeat. It loves to get something down and do it over and over again, whether it's something that's helpful for us or not, right?
It thinks it's being helpful, right? Our brain thinks it's being helpful, right?
Absolutely. But whether it actually is for us to decide. And that's where our higher brain comes in, or our prefrontal cortex, which is, I like to call it our executive secretary. That's really good at planning, and it's really good at making decisions, and it's really good at following through with that.
Yeah.
And sort of managing that lower brain. It's like, I hear you, and that may happen, but I think we're just going to follow through with this for right now. We're just going to keep to our plan and do the things that we've committed to doing, that we want to do. But it's learning also to accept that nothing's gone wrong, that we're okay, and that we're safe. And a lot of times I have my clients just take some deep breaths, but it really gives us some clarity. It disrupts a pattern if we're going down a certain way and road that wouldn't be helpful to continue down that way in thinking things or saying different things, then that it disrupts that pattern so that we're able to, again, create that space to think before we speak or act. And it also helps us to be okay with who we are. I think embracing all of us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, is really
Yes.
helpful in actually maintaining that self-confidence and accepting that. And then trusting ourselves that we can actually give ourselves what we need. We can be okay with where we're at, but also give ourselves and create the emotion that we need to keep going and follow through with what we would want to do to become more of the person we want to be, right? And always aligned with our core values. So we're acting in alignment. We're being the person we want to be.
Which I think in order for us to trust ourselves that we're going to act in alignment with who we want to be, self-confidence plays such a key role in our ability to trust. So it's like this big circle. I think, we learn to step back and observe what we're thinking, using our prefrontal cortex, our executive secretary, I think is what you called it, and being able to think about our thinking. And that whole cycle, helps us then to learn to trust ourselves more. And as we trust more, it can't help but, us to increase confidence as well, right? It's just this cycle that goes and goes and goes.
Yeah. It's like we have our own back.
Yeah.
You're like, I've got you. You're going to be okay. This is kind of a rough patch we're going through right now, but you're going to be okay. And just that reassurance.
Well, Kristine, I have appreciated this conversation and think that we can never learn enough about self-confidence as it pertains to ourselves and to connecting with others and to our heavenly parents. I would love for you to be able to share with people where they can find more of you. And we'll link to all those things in our show notes, but could you share that with us?
You bet. Yeah, I have a website. It's Kristine Cramer coaching.com. And it's Kristine with a K, Cramer with a C. So Kristine Cramer coaching.com. And it's the same for Instagram. It's at Kristine Cramer coaching. And my email address is KristineCramerCoaching@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Easy.
Super easy to find all those things. And thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to our listeners that are here. I know that people have so many options in who to listen to, and there's so many voices that are out there, so many voices for good. And I'm so appreciative for people who choose to spend time in our little corner of the universe. And I'm grateful for coaches that I have to share that space with. So thank you for being here.
And thank you, Heather. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Talk to you later, everybody. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.